Martin Gibbons, or Marty Gibbons, or Marty G, is our League of Women Voters of Washington Climate Activist Advocacy Chairperson. He's the guy who examines huge amounts of legislative climate bills as they kind of lurch through Olympia. And he translates all this into layman's English for our League of Women Voters Washington advocacy slash current issues page. So he's great. He's a writer behind the 2022 issue paper, Climate Change and Energy, and that summarizes all the bumps and impasses and success of the 21 season, soon to be the end of the 22 session, which is March 10th, somewhere around there. Is that true, Marty?
Yeah, about there.
Okay.
It's 60 days from now.
So it's very, very short and packed. And anyway, he joined the League in 2017 and joined the advocacy team to promote legislation that ensured a healthy environment for people and wildlife. And it was a water issue, and now it's climate change and energy. He served on the State Energy Strategy Advisory Committee in 2020 and currently chairs the League of Women Voters U.S. Climate Interest Group Renewable Energy Committee. So anyway, he grew up in West Virginia, and he earned an engineering degree from Virginia Tech and worked at Boeing. Now retired, living on a lake that's getting bigger and bigger, Incarnation, and loves snow skiing and travel and theater, and so he's a great guy. So I think I can now hand it over to Marty Gibbons.
Okay, and I'm both gonna try to describe to you what's happened in the last couple of weeks, because right before the session starts, a lot of action occurs, a lot of bills come pouring out, and that's what's happened now. But I'd also like to hear from you what you're interested in. You may know more about some of these issues and bills than I do. There's so much to know. What I like to start out with also is, why are we doing this at all? Why are we focusing on climate? Well, as we know in the state, it's getting warmer in the summer, maybe getting colder in the winter. But nevertheless, on the green on this chart shows our greenhouse gas releases over the last almost 30 years now in the state. This is the state accounting. And the red line there is the law now that we have to reduce our greenhouse gas releases. The law is House Bill 2311, passed in 2020. And last year we did make some progress, at least on planning to reduce our greenhouse gases. That's the colorful bar kind of in the middle that estimates by 2030 how much each of those bills, acts, will reduce our greenhouse gases in the state. Now, that we must follow through with all these, by the way. And nevertheless, we have also about the equivalent to go to get to 2050 at net zero. And as you can imagine, it's going to get harder and harder. So we have to press forward. That's why we're doing this. What gives us hope in this battle? Well, we can take decisive action, even in Washington State, even where the water turbines of the Eastern Washington turn out a lot of electric energy, allegedly clean. And especially in Washington State, because we have right now an enthusiastic governor, and we have a receptive legislature that's packed this session with a whole lot of bills that make some progress. And the priority objectives amongst pretty much the environmental community across the state, every environmental organization has a role to play, so they may have a different priority, but this is in general. Reduce the greenhouse gases in transportation and in buildings. We're going to focus a lot on buildings this year. We have to administer the Carbon Commitment Act. That's the Cap and Trade and Invest that was passed last year. That was the biggest bar on the chart we saw just last slide. And we need to make more progress on the Growth Management Act, which had a lot of bills introduced last year, but not very many of them passed. So there organizations are putting pressure on that as well. Then the Washington League has a new format for the issue pages. You may have seen some of that already, and I'll go over that a little bit to take some of the puzzle out of that maybe. And the idea was to make it easier to follow the bills. And if we got time, and Anita, cut me off when it's necessary or give me a 10-minute warning, make your voice heard in the legislature, because I think that's what everybody wants to do. They want to take action. So why transportation? Why buildings? This is a chart from the Energy Strategy report from 2020. This is how to get down that red line, essentially. What do we need to take out? What greenhouse gas we need to take out? Transportation is the biggest chunk, so we need to keep working on that. And then buildings are another big chunk of that. And so electrify buildings, get carbon out of the energy sources for buildings. And that's going to take a lot of investment. And there's, of course, going to be a lot of pushback. Well, what happened this week? Lots of bills introduced. I'm going to be testifying on 3 at least tomorrow, in both the House and the Senate. But the red charts are what's happening essentially tomorrow. You see the bill numbers, of course, on the left, short description in the middle, and then what's happening in the legislature on the right there. I've coded for myself in light red what's happening tomorrow. And you see January 14th. I get this from a feed from the ledge.wa.gov from the legislature. And unfortunately, it shows the last or the most forward event, or the last event scheduled. And that's scheduled for vote on the first 3 on January the 14th. Well, but it doesn't say there's 3 committee hearings on the 11th, tomorrow, for those. And I'm not going to testify on all of them. I'm submitting written testimony for some of them. But I'll go into some detail on some of these. This is probably too much right here to go over. But you can, everybody in this room can log in tomorrow morning or tonight, anytime, to the ledge.wa.gov. I'll show you how to do that. And you can make your position or give your position to the legislature, pro, con, or indifferent, or undecided, essentially, on these bills. You can leave written testimony too, if you want. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Okay. So as I said, we do have some new issue pages that I'm going to go into presently, and what you can do in logging in, or posting your position on any of these issues. And there are multiple ways to do it too. But let's see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a new share, if I can get over here. And we're going to go to my my browser. And so you should see my browser. I'm going to slim it down a little bit here so you can see more of it. You should recognize this page. This is the home page for the State of Washington League of Women Voters. And if you've been here before, you probably know that under advocacy, you can go to current issues. And that's what Anita was talking about here. There's a panel for all the issues that the State League follows, and including democracy right at the top, environment in the middle, and social and economic policy at the bottom. Well, of course, I'm in the middle, the environment, but we have these categories right now. I'm doing climate and energy because those two are so closely related. What we do in energy, of course, affects what happens in climate. And then Sherry Dysart does forests. She's a member of the Mason County League, which I think a lot of you are familiar with. And Then rivers. Raylene Gold has been doing rivers for years. She's focusing primarily on the Columbia River Treaty that's between the United States and Canada, but trying to get more water flowing through the Columbia so more salmon can spawn and feed the orcas. And that's one thing she's working on. And then transportation, of course, is another, it's a huge part of our greenhouse gas emissions here. And Cynthia Stewart has been doing league work like this for over 30 years. So she is an excellent resource on transportation and other things as well. And where I really wanted to show you, well, the issue paper is what we wrote last fall, and we know a lot more now. So that certainly does give an overview. I'll let you read that at your leisure. I won't go over that now. But if you go to read the details, we have a new look and feel, perhaps. And here are some links. You can either scroll down manually or go straight to the links. We're formatting a grid this year of the bills we're most focused on. There'll be more bills too. A few bills may come or go. We're trying to make this as stable as possible. And so this is somewhat similar to what you'll find on the legislative website, where the bills go through their process of committee hearings and floor votes and over to the other chamber and such. But this shows what the league position is right now. And it also supports, I usually focus on bills we support. There aren't too many that we oppose just because of the nature of the makeup of the legislature right now. Most of the legislators are enthusiastic about taking positions on climate change and doing something about it. So at the top are the Senate bills in blue, and the bottom, the House bills. But of course, once they pass the Senate committee hearings and pass the floor, they go over to the other chamber. So we'll have places to go here. The X means it's in committee right now. This we did this last Thursday and Friday. We submitted these, and so these may be a little out of date already. But the red triangle here is an opportunity to take action. In this case, it's, well, I guess there is a link. I wonder where that goes. Oh, I think it goes to my, you can't see that because I'm not sharing it. I'm going to go back down here and we'll look at that in a minute. Anyway, that is instructions on how you can take action, what bills are up for committee, when they're going to be in the committee, and you can make your position known. Further down, we have the bill descriptions, and these will be short this year, so we don't have to update them so often as we have in the past, and that really took a lot of time from league staff at the state. But what we'll also have is weekly reports, and that's what I want to show you. I'm going to have to do yet another new share. The beauty of Zoom, not Facebook, Zoom. Oh, where'd it go? Here we are. And it's a PDF, but it's the update for January the 9th, yesterday. So this is what I thought was going to happen this week as of really Friday. And it describes the bills needing action this week. That's where the red triangles came from. But it also will have a link you can go to open up. I think it just it opens up how to get to the signing in for the bills, pro or con. Please sign in pro on these. At any rate, this is how you can get to that information every week. So all of our issue chairs will create these PDFs that you can see the details now, rather than read the details on our main web page. And we're going to look at some of that in a little bit. I'm going to go back to, whoops, I thought so. Okay, I'm going to have to share again. Right here. Nope, really what I wanted to do was a new share back to my browser. And Any questions on the new format for the issue pages? Anything that you'd like to know more about or didn't understand when I covered it?
Marty, this is Martha Burke. How do you get to that page?
I will show you again.
Okay.
What we do is, I hope you can find the main page of the State League of Women Voters. Can you find that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you go into find advocacy
Uh-huh.
and then current issues.
Okay.
And that will take you to the main panel, which has all our legislative issues here.
Right.
So it's not just about environment, it's about all of these things, of course, especially now. And then click on the topic you want to know more about. And there we are, climate and energy, and you can either scroll straight down to get to these grids showing the bill status, the weekly reports. Now the weekly reports will stack up. We'll have one for next week and the week after that and the week after that all the way into March. So you can see the history or just look at the latest one and get more detail on why these bills are important. And some of that insight will come from these bill descriptions. And of course, we have both new bills coming out this session, and we have bills that didn't pass last session as well. At any rate, what I also wanted to talk about, I think I've got some time now. I'm going to go into another outside website that I use a lot. It's Climate at the Legislature. And it has independent analysis of the bills that are involved with climate in the legislature. It's not, these analyses are not performed by the legislators or the staff. This is an independent organization that will do analysis of these bills. So you get a little bit different angle from these. And I use this quite a bit to get insight as to what people are thinking about the bills in the legislature. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, if I can find it here, and I've been, we've been talking about it, and when the committee hearings are coming up, let's see if I can, no. I'm gonna go back, well, no, I'll do it this way. A committee hearing, let's see, let's look at this. So if we have a bill like appliance efficiency standards, which has a triangle here. So that means that's gonna have an event, a committee hearing, and you can sign in on this or even give testimony if you want. Anyway, so what I do now, or what people can do, is a committee sign in. And those are links in that PDF. I'll go over some of this again in a little while, how to get here. But you select the chamber, House or Senate. In this case, it's a House because it's a low number, 16. And then the committee will be in that PDF that we opened a minute ago, and it is Environment and Energy. And then what's the date? The date's going to be tomorrow. That'll be in the information that's in that PDF as well, the summary. Appliance efficiency. So you select that, and now you can say, I'd like to testify remotely, because it's all going to be remote again. You probably heard that. And it's just a Zoom. So it's fairly low stress, but you don't have to do that. And or you just like to make your position noted, or you'd like to submit written testimony. And these aren't mutually exclusive. You can give your, just note your position and go back later and decide you want to submit written testimony if you want. But say you want to just have your position noted for the legislative record. You select that link, committee sign in, legislative record. It gives the date and everything to make sure you know which bill it is. And then you come down here, it defaults to Pro, what do you know? And then I have a auto fill that will autofill this for me, and I have to do some adjusting here. And it automatically puts in LWVWA because it knows me. And so since I am testifying or taking a position for the League of Women Voters of Washington, I say things a little differently. I focus on league positions and why it matters to the league, not so much to me. Obviously, my philosophies will enter into this a bit, but it's my responsibility to represent the league in this testimony. But you can represent yourself. In fact, I encourage you not to imply you're a league member even, because the legislators will tend to conflate everybody who's a league member into one position. And you have an opportunity to speak as a citizen and tell your story, why it's important to you. That tends to be a stronger statement with the legislature. At any rate, then you just say, I'm not a robot, and away you go. I'm not going to submit it because I've already submitted for me, and I don't want to double up. But you can, let's see if I can get back. I can, let's see. You can also, as I said, submit written testimony, and what that looks like here, it gives you a box for written testimony. And you've got, what, 5,000 characters. So that's pretty good. If you decide you want to talk, especially if you've really got a personal story to tell, how this bill is going to affect you and your family, your community, and your state. But I recommend keeping it short, because often they have, last session in 2001, they had as many as 60 or more. I was in several hearings with 60 people wanted to testify. They have to bring that down to 1 minute, and they appreciate every second you can save them. So in general, you don't have to go on and on. Tell them your position and why, unless you've got a really compelling story to tell, then they probably want to hear that. At any rate, that's how you can submit some written testimony. Once again, please don't claim to be speaking for the league, because that's my job. And not that I'd be offended, but the board doesn't wants me to do that. That's why they pay me the big bucks, by the way. I'm kidding, I'm a volunteer. Now, finally, what did I want to, this is another intriguing feature. Once you select that agenda item, the bill that they're going to cover in this hearing, they're going to cover 3 bills in this hearing. You can see who has signed in for this agenda item. So let's have a look. I can move this again. Well, there I am. I signed in pro for the league. And I guess I did that yesterday. So you can see who is signing in, what's their position. Home appliance manufacturers. Oh, that's kind of intriguing. I guess they don't want the extra expense of making efficient appliances, even though they maybe sell some more of them. Anyway, so you can see, I usually look at that and get a feeling for what other testifiers are going to say, and I may adjust my testimony. I don't get into fights with people. I just may emphasize different things depending on who's testifying and what I think they're going to say. I'm even sometimes changing my testimony right up to the end, and I always write mine out. And if you decide to testify, I'd suggest that. Then you can just read it and not get nervous, and get to the point and get on, because the legislators will appreciate your expediency in this case. Anyway, you can also see below that who just signed in. This is, let me see if I can, these are not testifying. So they just signed in pro or con or other. Other means you may have some quibbles with the bill. You might like it in general, but you have some requests for amendments perhaps. And Climate Solutions has signed in, but she's not going to testify. Usually she testifies. That's kind of amazing, but I guess most people think this is maybe a slam dunk. You can see most people are testifying pro. It will probably go well. It won't be much, but what do we got here? 53 people so far have signed in on that. And if you haven't yet, you can. No problem. Now, how could we show that a little bit better? I will try something here. I'm going to try sharing my whole desktop, and maybe I gotta make sure I can see everything. But what I wanted to do is go to this weekly reports, because that's probably what's going to give you the information you want. Here, I'm going to do a new share, and I'm going to do my whole desktop. Can you see my whole desktop now? More than one layer. And so I'm going to open this weekly report. And here was the, can you read this? Appliance efficiency standards. And then you can go to that link.
Yes.
And so here it takes you directly to the committee sign-in. So if you want to sign in, that's the way to do it. Our great league staff created that link for me. I'm really pleased by that. So then you can, it's the same thing. You just sign in, pro, gives you the option pro, con, or other. And you can check to make sure you know what you're signing into right at the top. So that way you can do all those bills if you choose. Don't have to, but anyway. Any questions at this point? I see there's something in the chat. You do not have to be a voter. You have to put your address in. And let's see, what do they require? Email address. I thought they had a phone. Yeah, phone. You have to put a phone number in down here. So you have to take a stand, a personal stand here, but you do not have to be a citizen. You don't have to be a voter. Any more questions on this? I'd be glad to clear things up. Okay.
Yeah, I had another question.
Sure.
Can you show us again, how do you see who's testifying?
Yes, I can
and
do that.
Do you have to comment on the bill in order to see that?
No, but you have to come in a different way. You
Okay.
have to come in, let me see if I can, you have to, let's see if we can find it. This is at the high level. Maybe we should go all the way to the top. I'm going to do my best. Zoom tries to take over real estate on my screen, and let's see, I don't know if there's another way. Well, we'll try to find it. I thought this would. Darn. Well, that's where I am. Let's see if we can work back. The really doesn't give you a good. What we want, I will put this in the chat. What we want is that part of the URL. And I'm going to put that in the chat here. Maybe somebody else has. If you go to this location, and I'll show you, oops, I didn't return. There we go. That's the URL for going to the top level. And we will do that now. Whoops. And so this is the committee sign-in window that I just couldn't find a a link to go to it, but it's in the chat. Please try to save that link, save that URL, and then or bookmark it. And then you can go in. You have to select a chamber. In this case, it's a 1619. The lower numbers are House bills. The higher numbers are Senate bills. So it's a House number. And then it tells here in the weekly update what committee it's in. So House Environment and Energy. So the House, committee. So now we look for the Environment and Energy, and we look for the day, and we said it was the 11th. And once again, this example, appliance efficiency. And once you select that, see if I unselect that. Now, once you select it, it will give you this option here. See who has signed in for this agenda item. So you have to be in this window, not the window that link on the weekly update gave. So once again, bookmark that link, and then you can see what's happening.
Thank you. That's
You're
great.
welcome. Let's see here. What else did I want to talk about? I think maybe we should give an opportunity to talk about the bills themselves a bit. And here are the bills on the climate change and energy docket, most of them happening this week. So the top one, I haven't fully looked at 5493. I haven't completely looked at. It is it's an expansion or an extension of essentially rebates and tax incentives for installing residential scale energy systems like heat pumps and that sort of thing. So I think the money ran out last year that was originally designated. So they'd like to extend that, I think, at least through 2024 and maybe beyond, but it'll just go as long as the money lasts. Because that's the way money is, right? The wallet's empty, you can't do anything more. So they just have to appropriate more if that seemed to be a good thing. The next one, 5526, is pretty much what you see. There's concern about, do we have enough of the raw materials to make the batteries we need and the other equipment? None of these problems are going to be easy to solve at this stage. It's going to be costly to some extent. Eventually, the investments will pay off and it'll be cheaper to live with the energy. But in the meantime, as we replace energy, and as we figure out, as we continue to bring the cost of these systems down, it will, and we'll have to mine lithium and mine cobalt and things like that. We want to do that in a responsible way. So this is also to study whether we have the lithium and other rare earth metals to make the equipment we need: wind turbines, batteries, et cetera, solar panels, and transmission lines, all this stuff. So I think that's a good idea, unless it's used to say, nope, too hard, we'll go back and just burn fossil fuels. I don't want that to happen. That's why I put a watch on it. I just haven't sorted that out yet. But some people here may have a good opinion, and I'd like to hear that if you got some insight into that. Then the third one there, 5543, zero emission landscaping equipment incentive program. It's emphasizing zero emission, and what we're talking about here is string trimmers, weed whackers, leaf blowers, probably lawnmowers, but a lot of the things that use two-cycle engines to power landscaping equipment. Of course, where I think there's a big opportunity here is they are noisy, they create noise pollution, They create air pollution with the two-cycle engines. They degrade the air quality of the neighborhoods. They degrade the noise, the ambiance of the neighborhoods. I noticed myself, people go roaring by my house, of course, on motorcycles. They like to hear the loud noise. One guy here out in East King County, Lake Joy, has an electric motorcycle. Boy, that's a pleasure to watch him go by because it's almost silent. Just the tire noise is all I hear. So I think there's a big opportunity to improve not only our climate greenhouse gas emissions, but reduce the need to pump petroleum and make our neighborhoods quieter and cleaner air. So I'm supporting that. And then this is a Senate joint resolution to the federal Congress to finally implement a plan to handle spent nuclear fuel. And so a past president of the State League, Ann Murphy, is handling that because we have to go through the League US to get permission to make a statement on federal policy. That's another complication that we have to, the issue chairs take care of. And then down here, the appliance efficiency standards, that's just to get Energy Star requirements on more of our appliances. There's also an interesting twist in that we had some regulations on some pumps that like pool pumps, and I forget there was another category where the pumps typically run for continuously. And there was a federal requirement to improve their efficiency, and the federal requirement takes precedence. So part of this bill is to remove the state requirement on those things, which now has become illegal because the federal statute supersedes. So that's part of that bill as well. There's a response to extreme weather, which I'm experiencing in my house, certainly. I can't talk too much about that now. I haven't thoroughly sorted that out. Then a risk assessment of power supply inadequacy. The Department of Commerce in particular is responsible for our energy strategy and energy planning, and also the Transportation and Utilities Commission. Anyway, there has been a requirement for a report every 4 years to update what's the outlook for energy in the state. I'm talking about 1623 now. And this bill says make a special report next year on what's the outlook for rolling blackouts if we don't have enough electrical power, and also to increase the frequency of those reports. So I think that's probably a good idea. I fear a little bit it could be used to stop making progress, used politically for that perspective. And in my testimony, I'm going to say, don't do that. And then there's also a recognition that agriculture is responsible for quite a bit of climate greenhouse gases releases, both from just the farming, the way we do farming, and there's also, and there's their equipment, tractors and trucks and stuff. They take their produce to market at long distance in some cases. And then also there's an opportunity to sequester carbon in farmland, which we may not be making full enough use of. So that is to fund some consultants to help farmers figure out better ways along those lines to reduce greenhouse gas releases. That was 1631. And then, as you probably are aware, landfills release methane. It's not a huge amount, but it is there. And methane is a very potent greenhouse gas, even though it tends to have a short half-life compared to carbon dioxide. Nevertheless, in the short term, it's making its presence known. So The idea here is, can we control the methane leaking out of our landfills in various ways? And then this one at the last here, Climate Commitment Act compliance. So the Climate Commitment Act passed last year. It's a cap and trade. I hope you are aware of that. I hate to go into the details right now, but it was, it was crafted last year, and the crafters like Reuben Carlisle and Joe Fitzgibbon knew there would be problems with it. It's a big, long bill, and we're having to make adjustments. And that's going to be the case. We have to make constant adjustments in our planning and in our actions to get to where we need to be, because we will never get it right the first time. Nobody ever does. So this is one of those early adjustments to that. And I got it as watch because it's a complicated thing and I haven't sorted it out yet completely. I just want to get confident before I support it. So that's what's happening in the near term. I'd like to once again open it up for questions, or are you concerned about another bill? And there's more description of other bills down here. And actually I've got a list of 45 bills potentially that I'm going to have to deal with this session, and there probably will be more to come, but many of them won't move at all, and some of them will die in committee. So this will change, of course. Anyway, anybody have any questions or comments or alarms or alerts that they'd like to let me know about? And you may know something about these. Yes.
I noticed there's a lot on the chat.
I haven't been looking at that.
To read out the chats that might get some of the questions.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go from the bottom here. Many farmers are sowing cover crops. Problem is that not a large percentage of them are not tilling under the winter cover crops. Instead, they are using Roundup to kill the green manure.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this at all, but that's a good insight. All these efforts are complicated, and they have some gotchas involved. And what I would expect that bill to at least make available consultants who can help the farmers sort out the right process for their farm and their crops and such. And I can't explain that at all. And maybe people that can do a better job, like, what's this? Anita, okay. House Bill 1099. Yeah, that is, Cynthia Stewart has been following land use planning for 3 decades. So Cynthia handles our Growth Management Act bills. Unfortunately, we got a little dispute going on the lobby team on where we should put those. And so we hope to get that sorted out by next week. And I can't remember what's happening with 1099, but we can, but you know what? You can look that up by copying that. Let's have a look. I'm still, let's see. Here, I'm going to cheat and the way you can find bill information, if you haven't done this already, is go to bill information. Oops, that is 1099, and you can, come on, 1099. And you just enter the 4 digits of the bill in the bill information screen, and it goes to 1099. So that was submitted last year, and it went almost all the way through. Then it got returned from the Senate back to the House at the very end. So it's been, they had a vote today. By resolution, it was returned and retained in its present status. So I think it starts in the Senate, I think, now. So it doesn't have to go through the House again. So that'll go through the Senate. But if you want to know more about it, so that's what I know about the status of 1099. And that is part of that bill is to require cities to do more planning for climate change, both from a prevention and from an adaptation perspective. And that's important right now because many cities in the state are beginning their planning cycle required by the Growth Management Act. So this is a more detailed requirements in the Growth Management Act. So you can look at the bill reports are more natural language assessments of the bill language. And so you can read things, well, here's a brief summary of the bill if you really want to know what's going on. But did that answer the question for the most part, Barbara? What's happening? That's what I know about 1099. And if you want to make a comment about it, feel free. Tell me what I need to know. Or not.
Marty, this
Yes.
is Martha again. So you kind of mentioned that some bills will sort of die on the vine. Is there some way we can get a sense of that kind of early on so we don't worry
Well,
about it?
yes, yes. When let's go back, if I can kill some of this. Here is the bill history. So last year it was pre-filed for introduction, and then it almost first week it had its first reading. Well, it was assigned to the Environment and Energy Committee, and it had a public hearing. Well, it was a week later. So, well, it's a long session last year, so a week later, that's pretty good. But if it's not moving, sometimes they will have a hearing, and then it goes week after week and no vote. Oh, it's dying, unless somebody kicks it, or unless the other thing we have done, the league has created an action alert to all the legislators, and I hope everybody's familiar with the action alerts. And the league isn't the only one that does those, but so a message will go out from constituents to their legislators saying, "Hey, get this bill moving. I want it voted on." That might break it free a little bit. It works the best with the committee chair, but if there's not much support for the bill, then that might happen. I'm trying to remember, there was the Washington Strong Act last year. Anybody remember the bill number? I think it was 5373, maybe. Yeah, this is, if you remember the Washington Strong bill, it was similar to the cap and trade, only it didn't have a cap. It was a carbon tax and selling bonds that were going to be retired with the carbon tax.
Yes.
It did not. Here's what happened. Oh, it was reintroduced. So it had its first reading on January 28th, and it wasn't until March till it had a public hearing. It didn't go anywhere. And so this long period of not going anywhere was a problem. Of course, there were a lot of environmental organizations behind it, and I testified for it myself. But now it's been reintroduced. I'm kind of surprised by this because I talked to Senator Lovelet, who was the sponsor of the bill. She didn't think it was going to go anywhere this year because the cap and trade and invest was the alternative, really, policy-wise to this one. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but it seemed that was the attitude of the legislators. So that's
Just a minute. Marty,
Yes.
let me interrupt a minute. There's
Yes.
somebody who's not muted, and I think it might be Lee because your
oh,
square keeps lighting
there we
up.
go.
So please mute.
There, she did. So did that answer the question about insight? You know, and that isn't even definitive. I've had times where I thought, oh, this is surely dead. It's not going anywhere. It pops up and it passes, and I got to scramble, to get testimony ready and everything. And there are surprises like that. So, but I pay attention to this kind of, if there's a big gap in the first reading and the public hearing, or there's a big gap between the public hearing and a vote, or the vote is never scheduled. And frankly, I think like 2,000 bills are introduced every biennium, and only 200 are ever passed. So it's the death and destruction is just awful. And think of all the work the staff goes through to draft these things. But anyway, that's just the way it is.
So Marty, I wonder if I could ask about a particular bill, 5722, which I understand is up for a hearing later this week on reducing emissions from buildings.
Yes. And it is, let's take a look. It is a public hearing, what is that, Thursday? And I got to get my act together on that one. I think I will support that probably. I can't imagine I wouldn't. But you can already, with that link I put in the chat earlier, you can go in and make a statement right now on that if you want. What we can do, let's see, we can back up here maybe. Oh, phooey. That was the Environment, Energy, and Technology for the Senate. They added technology onto it from what the hell? Anyway, so that's 13th. Here we are, greenhouse gas in buildings. So you can go in there and you can make your position noted for the record if you want. You can see who's signed in already. Yep, things are happening. This guy usually signs in con to climate bills. He's a regular. Yeah, this is the usual. I don't see any. It's got a, and just because there are mostly pros and only a few cons, that doesn't guarantee anything. But it looks like it's the usual here. Well, look at this, Madeline Bishop. Do we know her? Is she on? Seen her somewhere. I think I added her to my newsletter recently. She signed in twice. Good for her. Sometimes you don't know, you can't remember if you signed in. It's okay. I mean, so what? They'll recognize two of the same. But Sherry Dysart, thank you, Sherry, if you're not on, from Mason County. Okay, so that's what's happening there. I would encourage at this point probably sign in pro to that one, but I haven't scrutinized it enough yet. And let's see, what's the, let's talk a little bit more about it maybe. Oh, you know what? They don't even have, see, they usually will have a bill report where they have a summary of the bill. We can take a look at, this is a 7-pager, which is a modestly long bill. Let's see, so, what they're doing here is they're underlining new language in existing law and striking out old language. It looks like they're changing writing out numbers to just having numerals. But they're changing the language here and there. So when you're looking at the raw language, I just go through and see what they're changing typically and see if it's what I think is sensible. But these things can be very complicated and hard to sort out. So I also depend on other sources, understand why other organizations like the Northwest Energy Coalition may be supporting or against. That helps me understand what's happening and create a position. Okay, we're getting near the end. Let's see, what more questions might we have? Oh, most people are testifying against it. Well, I don't know. I don't know, Monica. It may be, some people think it's fairly low payback for the amount of effort you'd have to put into it. Could be a reason. Could be fear. I'll have to check and see who is testified against it.
That's interesting because, yeah, it should have a pretty high payback, I would expect.
I would think so too, but you never know the amount of effort you got to put into putting systems in place and monitoring and such. Part of it's monitoring though in that bill. Now here, Lee, you said, who reads written testimony and when? Good question. Because they say explicitly on those sign-up sheets that the written testimony will not be summarized, even though that would be easier to summarize. The oral testimony is what they often summarize by the staff in the documents for the, you have 11 new messages at the bottom. Oh my goodness gracious. Let's see. Okay, here is, this is more about the cover crops.
Monica has another question in there about HJR 4209 and adding the right.
Yes. I think this is adding right. Yes, Sherry Dysart is working that for forests. We had to put it somewhere she wanted it. So look on the forest page, I think, for information on that.
That's great. Thank you. Forest is
welcome.
perfect.
And let's see, Lenny. Well, that's true. What Lenny is saying, I have found the most effective way to see if a bill is progressing is to contact the prime sponsor's office. Yep. That's true.
And Marty, what about what Monica is saying? What about HJR 4209 and SJR?
Okay, yes. What I was, let's see. Yeah, HJR 4209. Maybe I didn't say the numbers. Adding the right to clean air and water to the Washington State Bill of Rights. Sherry Dysart, who is our forests issue chair, is handling that one. And that one, see, it's an HJR. No, that's within state. So that's within our domain. Yeah, because it's changing our state constitution. So look on the forest page for information on that bill or on that joint resolution.
Okay, I think you may have mentioned that, and I was looking up trying to find.
Yeah.
What,
Well, I think I might have not read the number either. More questions or more comments or suggestions for what I should be looking at?
Well, thank you.
Why are they still selling Roundup? Well, it's really effective, I guess. But you got to quit doing that. Okay, let's see. Okay, Anita put, yes, another link into more information about herbicides for killing cover crops. Now, each of these topics is extremely difficult. We've let ourselves get into a really bad situation here where we have to do all things and we have to do them well. And it's too bad that we put it off for so long. I don't know if any of you went to the Lunch and Learn webinar on January the 5th, where the league was a co-sponsor. Just a long description of how the petroleum industry has shifted, not merely told falsehoods, but ingrained a attitude of uncertainty in the voters and the residents, and so we don't know what to think about climate change and about greenhouse gases and such. And they spent probably several $billions doing it over 100 years. But these things are complicated and take some effort to sort out, and that's what we're about. But we have in Washington a receptive governor, a receptive legislature, so let's show the way.
Well, thank you so much. Anything else? Anybody else have a question? I can't see.
Ed Chad has his hand up.
Ted?
Ed?
Ed Chad. Ed.
Hi, Marty. I don't know if we're already over time, so is it just time to wrap up, or?
I'll let Anita answer that.
You can go if you need to, and you can stay if you'd like to.
Well, I had a question, actually two related questions. Which
well, let's go.
Yeah, okay. You've got a great overview of what's going on. That's really a historical overview. And as you look at this session, I'm wondering which of the bills out there have potentially the biggest impact on climate. Oh, and let me give you the related question. So
okay, very good.
and then I'm wondering which of the bills are going to be the hardest hauls to get over the finish line. And I wonder if there's an intersection between those.
Yeah, yeah, I think the environmental community of the state, let me see if I need to return to, let me do a new share and go back to my charts here. And maybe we can, I think what I said, come on, go back to the top. You know, the clean fuel standard, making adjustments to that. I'm sorry, the clean fuel standard is really kind of small. It's discouragingly small from what I know. Climate Commitment Act is a big chunk. We got to do well. We got to execute that and make adjustments, I think, is an important thing. And then we need to look at the building electrification, decarbonization really was what the better term, decarbonizing buildings. And that is underway. I had a, you know, I think maybe I had put it at the bottom. I was doing this another way. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to find this chart. No. Do this again. I was trying to summarize just what you were asking. Electrification of transportation, it's one that did not get through last year, but it's still alive, and it doesn't have anything scheduled yet. Here's another one on transportation that is, I think this has been introduced this year. And once again, the very productive Cynthia Stewart does not only Growth Management Act, but transportation as well. And so she's handling these bills. But I looked and nothing was happening yet. But those are going to be important. And probably the reason that they're not happening is they're still sorting things out. Let's see. So here's two building greenhouse gas bills. One's scheduled for the public hearing. There was, I think we might have, yeah, we looked at that a little bit on who's against it. Industry will be against it probably. And will testify against it anyway, and lobby heavily against it because it's they see it as increasing their cost, but increases their workforce too. So that's a short answer, Ed. I think the remaining transportation and keeping on track with the cap and trade and invest program, because that's long and complicated.
And can you characterize which group of senators or representatives are most likely to need persuasion?
Yes. Yes, some bills are easier than others. I think the polarization of not only the country, but even the state is an indication of who needs to be hear more about it. And so if you're in a conservative district, you have a lot of opportunity. Really, I mean, that's the good news. You have opportunity to, because, well, right now, can you believe it? The redistricting is pushing me to Wenatchee. I'll be in a district with Wenatchee. Well, I'll have an opportunity to persuade conservative representatives probably. And So that's the good news about it. It's kind of weird, but that's redistricting for you. So I would say, if you've got conservative legislators, definitely not only make your voice known in the committee hearings, but send them messages, and you can find their emails if you haven't already on the Ledge website as well. It's pretty easy to find that. You can find your legislator, and there's a way to email them directly. So I'd encourage you to do that. I don't know. I think we have information typically boilerplate in the webpage on encouraging people to do that. But I think that's what we got to do. I don't have specific names right now. Now, who follows that a little more closely are the Washington Environmental Council and Carbon Washington and things, organizations like that have paid staff, and they know they have targets, that they think they can sway people, and that's what we got to pay attention to. I barely have enough time to keep up with the list that I maintain. And so that's why we're in coalitions. That's why the league's in coalitions, with these other organizations. So I can call these people up and say, what's up? Just like somebody suggested, call the staff member of the prime sponsor of a bill. If it's not moving, ask them, is it dead yet? And they may have some insight, and then I can leave it alone for good. And I should do that more.
Well, thank you, Marty.
You're welcome.
Anybody
everyone.
else? Marty Bishop, do you see any other hands up? Well, thank you so much, Marty Gibbons. I really, really appreciate it. And what happened to my screen? It likes to disappear on me. And I also, if you are at all interested, I'm starting a newsletter trying to connect different groups around the state about what's going on. And so there's calendar events, and here's our guy. So there's a lot of different things, not just locally, but nationally on it. There's some important things. Marty has written essays about what's going on and why it's important. And then at the very end, you can see climate articles that are interesting from the league and from all over, Al Jazeera to the White House. So if you're interested, please let Marty know, because he has the list to send this to, and we'll be sending it out the first of every month.
So we have 120 people on the distribution list now, and that's up about 30 from when we started.
Yeah.
Well done, Anita.
Well, thank you. It tickles me. So, well, thank you all. Anything else before we go? I really, really appreciate you all being here, and keep on the good work, and never, never, never say give up.
Mhm.
Keep trying.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you.